Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Monday, Memorial Day. We want to thank everyone for their service. We've got Matt and Dennis here with us. We're going to be talking about the AFC East, Bills and Dolphins. But before we get to that, if you guys have not seen the tweets, we are giving away a spot in the Scott Fish Bowl 11. Jump on in. Give us your favorite fantasy football team name, your favorite NFL team, top quarterback who you think is going to finish as QB1. I think that's a little bit easy. Maybe RB1 in the 2021 season. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section. You guys will be added for a chance to win a spot in the Scott Fish Bowl 11, and we will do a 100-yard rush at the end of today's episode. Before we get to that, though, Dennis, Matt, how you gentlemen doing?
Well, are we giving away a spot in 11 or a spot in SFBX, which is this year? Isn't it this year?
No, X was last year.
X was last year, yeah. Yeah, was it's 11 this year. Yeah, live. Yeah, 11. Yeah. Oh, no,
So
Dennis froze.
Dennis
was so Dennis froze.
to
There we go.
give away a spot in the past.
Well, you'll see on June 14th when that show releases that we are time travelers.
That is true. We got an episode coming out. You guys will definitely see that.
I'm great. I just had my little breakfast, some fat-free plain yogurt with fresh blueberries, and I got to tell you, man, I could eat that every morning. As a matter of fact, I do. It's delicious. I highly recommend it. It's way better than yogurt with fruit added to it and all that sugar and all that.
Yeah, you and I both on the healthy eating plan for our lives now. So I had my hard-boiled eggs and black coffee. Really starting the day off on an exciting note.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there. The wife really wants me to eat more healthy. All this talk about needing to be around for a long time and everything. I think living's a little bit overrated, but it is what it is. So, anyways, as I mentioned, we are going to be talking about the Bills and the Dolphins on today's show. Again, if you guys, for all the people who are just now turning in, jump in, give us a comment on anything you guys want on the show to get a chance to be entered in the Scott Fish Bowl 11 100-yard rush to get a shot to be in the Scott Fish Bowl 11. So let's start with the Buffalo Bills, correct? That's who we're starting with here?
Bills.
In the middle of writing some stuff down. So they finished 2020 with the 13-3 finish. First place in the AFC East. They did lose 38-24 in the AFC Championship game to Kansas City, though I don't even think it was really that close. Their key additions, they added Mitch Trubisky as a backup quarterback, Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver, Matt Breida, running back, Jacob Hollister, tight end. Their key losses, John Brown, the wide receiver, went to the Las Vegas Raiders. Tight end Tyler Kroft to the Jets. Tyler Niski, the right tackle, to the Dallas Cowboys. In the first round, they took defensive end Gregory Rousseau. Second round, they took Carlos Basham, the defensive end. And in the third round, they took offensive tackle Spencer Brown. Dennis, was 2020 the ceiling for Josh Allen? Do you think he can get any better?
I think this is the year he has to show that he's consistent. My son just started mowing the yard. Can you hear him?
I was trying to figure out if it was that or if there was a motorcycle race going on near you. We were just trying to.
He'll be driving by here shortly.
This is the place. I'm not going to lie, buddy. I am going to butcher your name. I'm just going to put your comment on the screen. You are now entered because I don't want to Sarikin. It's going to be bad. So I cannot even pronounce my own last name. So yes, this is the place. You are now entered. Thank you.
So, yeah, I think last year probably is his ceiling. He was much more efficient from a completion percentage, and he in his history of college and first couple years in the NFL, he had not shown that type of accuracy. Well, now we're going to take a look and see, can he sustain it? And I'm not 100% sold. Is he going to be as, and I use the term loosely, bad as he was before? I don't know. He's probably not going to be a 70% completion guy on a consistent basis, but maybe 66, 67 is probably more like it, as opposed to the 59, 60 where he had been before. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. I like to watch good people play football, because good people playing football score points, and they score fantasy points, and we all love that.
He was QB1 overall in 2020, so I think that's the ceiling for any quarterback. Probably he can't get higher than being first place. He's always going to give you a good rushing amount. He's had 24 rushing touchdowns, I think, over his first 3 seasons. It seems like he is their goal line back, so that's always going to help a little bit. He took a huge stride. He's improved his completion percentage each of the 3 years he's been in there. Tend to be with Dennis. I think, completing 70% of your passes probably ends up being a little bit, probably being the ceiling. But we saw 4,500 yards. We saw a lot of passing touchdowns. They seem to have developed a robust passing offense. They lost John Brown, but they added Emmanuel Sanders. You like Gabe Davis. You like Stephon Diggs, seem to help take it to the next level. Cole Beasley's still there. They didn't do a lot to change their running game, so I don't see them developing into a power running team. I think he's still going to be a top 5 guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to be top 5. Will he unseat Patrick Mahomes this year? I do not think so. I wouldn't even. I'm still all in on Kyler Murray being a really good fantasy quarterback. I know he was really good last year, and then kind of came down on the second half of the season. Some of that, I think, due to the shoulder injury. But Allen, I'm still a little bit worried. Can he produce with the accuracy that he did last year? We had not seen that at all in his fantasy career, his college career, NFL career until last year. I hope that he does, because I really like Josh Allen. I don't think he falls out of the top 5, but number 1, I am with you guys. I do not expect that to happen. Do the Bills need to develop a running game to be successful, Matt?
Yeah, I think they have to be able to run the ball a little bit better. It's interesting. The first couple of years that Allen was there, it seemed like they were more of a run-heavy offense. He is part of that running game. I really expected that Buffalo was going to make some kind of substantive move to improve the rush game, because it seemed like that was a true liability in some of those playoff games. They could not get anything going on the ground. And when you're playing a team like Kansas City, you don't really want it to get into being a track meet. We saw more of the teams that were successful were able to kind of control the ball and slow things down. Playing in the AFC East, where you're going to get a lot of kind of nasty weather in November and December, places where they play at home in Buffalo, places like New England, you'd think they'd want a better running game. Maybe they believe that Singletary and or Moss is going to take a step forward. I don't really see the addition of Breida changing a lot of that. I thought running game was a place they needed to address this offseason. I'm sort of surprised they didn't.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they brought in Breida as the answer to their running game. I think what that tells us, though, is that McDermott, looking at their numbers from last year, so Singletary played 57% of the snaps, and Moss played 37%. So I feel like Moss's numbers are going to go up a little bit. He's not a rookie. He's up to speed on the NFL game. I think Singletary's role is pretty well set now. He's the passing down back. He's going to get a few carries. But Moss, I think, is going to get a little more run in the running game. So I'm looking for more of a 50-50 split, and I feel like Breida is just veteran insurance. He's a guy there. He's Gio Bernard in Tampa Bay.
He's the TJ Yeldon that they had last year.
Yeah. Just somebody there to not make mistakes.
All those people who are just now jumping in here, if you guys want, comment into the comments. You guys will get entered for a chance to win a spot in Scott Fish Bowl 11. I do agree with you guys. I do think they need to develop a running game. I think that's why Kansas City was able to shut them down the way that they were last year. Is it Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, or Matt Breida, though? I do not think so. I don't have any faith in any of these guys. I know Zach Moss was impressive in his short time on the field. Injuries kind of derailed that a little bit. I've not been that sold.
Impressive.
Well, look, I'm with you. We know that there's some people who love him. Sugar-free, you are entered. I did get you with your Justin Fields comment. I assume that was Fields' comment, but I got you entered already, though. Thank you. I forgot what I was talking about now. Zach Moss. There are people, look, he got a lot of touchdowns. He looked good at times. There are people who believe he's a top-end wide running back. I don't. But that doesn't mean that they're wrong or that I'm right. So Devin Singletary is a guy that I had a lot of high hopes on, and he is yet to make me look good. So I'm just not sold on any of these guys. I think their best running back is, in all honesty, their quarterback as well. So I just don't. I think if the three of these guys can find a way to be successful, to be good for the Buffalo Bills team, fantasy wise, which we'll get to here in a little bit, I'm not sold on any of the three of them. Dennis, that being said, what do you believe needs to be done to make the Bills a Super Bowl team?
Well, I think they've got an elite quarterback. They've got an elite wide receiver, a reasonable running game. We saw last year with Tampa that you don't necessarily have to have a top-end game. At least one area of the offense can be average at best, and you can still put up a trophy season. So they've got a good – I'm still high on Gabriel Davis, even though they brought in Emmanuel Sanders. Cole Beasley is racking up short area targets. I think somebody sneaky that you mentioned as a signing is Jacob Hollister. He's got rapport with Allen going back to college. He was Allen's college tight end. Hollister's not he's not known for his blocking by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a good pass receiver, and he's 6'5" and 245 pounds. I think he gives them somebody with a little more athletic ability at the tight end than Dawson Knox. And so now I feel like they have the ability to go 12 personnel with two capable tight ends. And as much as I think some people want to put stock into the Emmanuel Sanders signing, I still feel that Gabriel Davis is on the rise. He's young. He's much more athletic. He's got good speed. He's just good speed, good size. I think that Cole Beasley is going to lose some targets to Davis this year. I feel like it's Diggs, then Davis, and then Beasley and Sanders battling for the wide receiver 3 spot.
Yeah, Sanders just gives them nice depth. I think, shockingly, one of the areas that probably underperformed for them last year was that defense, and you've seen them working on that. They spent their top 2 picks trying to get some pass rushers, some more strength on that defensive line. They're a team that looked across at Kansas City and looked across at what they weren't able to do in that AFC Championship game, and they're trying to address that. The AFC is going to be very competitive up at the top. They need their offense to continue to produce at a high level. I think that's the reason maybe you go and pick up a Sanders so that you have some depth. I don't think it was a question of whether they liked the top 3 receivers they had coming back. It was trying to keep things going. They added some depth at running back. We'll see if that pans out. They need Josh Allen to keep playing at that kind of MVP level that he was at last year. I know he didn't win. I think I probably would have picked him based on what we saw and what he was able to do for the Bills. And they need that defense to get better. They have a great chance right now with the Patriots. Obviously have tried to rebuild a little bit, but I still think Buffalo and Miami's coming up, but I still think Buffalo's probably got the best overall team in the AFC East. So they need to take care of business in their own division, try to get a top seed, and then just battle your way through the playoffs.
Yeah, I really don't think they're that far off. I mean, again, the AFC Championship game I thought was a little bit more lopsided than the final score indicated. I think the Browns would have given them a hell of a better game, but, that is what it is. Fucking Chad Henne. Anyways, let's the Bills, really the running game, and I agree with Matt, the defense needs to improve just a little bit, but I mean, golly, why can't I think of his name now? Head coach Doug McDermott. Is a very good.
Sean McDermott.
Doug McDermott's an actor, isn't he?
Sean
McDermott, though, is a head coach in the NFL. Close enough.
Dylan McDermott,
same,
is the
but
actor.
different. Same, but different. I got you. But anyways,
You're losing
Sean
your pop
McDermott.
culture credibility there, Bruning.
I am.
Dylan
I haven't
McDermott.
really got a chance to watch a lot of movies and everything now. It's sad. College football is taking up a lot of my life. It makes me sad. I see more and more people jumping in. So again, just comment in here. We will get you guys added to Scott Fishbowl. And we will not do the 100-yard rush until the end of the show, though, as we want to get through the Bills and the Dolphins, just so everybody knows. But what was I talking about? Now I've completely lost it. The defense.
What do they need
I think that if McDermott's a good enough defensive coordinator with some of the moves that they've made, the defense I think will improve a little bit. For me, really the big thing is the rushing game. They can't be just built solely on the passing game with Josh Allen. They need to bring in some kind of rushing attack. Hopefully, in adding Matt Breida, Devin Singletary, and Zach Moss can step up. Those three together can produce a better running game than just what their quarterback was able to do. So fantasy finishes and fantasy projections. Is Josh Allen going to be a top 5 QB again this year? Last year, as Matt mentioned, he finishes as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. 4,544 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 421 rushing yards with 8 touchdowns. Dennis, top 5 quarterback lock in 2021?
Man, a lot of so much of it depends on him being able to maintain that accuracy and not cede rushing touchdowns to Zach Moss. So, and I'm on record saying I think the accuracy comes down some, and I think Moss is going to have a better year than last year. So, the top quarterbacks, they're pretty much all Konami code quarterbacks. You've got Allen, Murray, Rodgers, though he doesn't run like he used to. He's pretty mobile. Mahomes runs more in the Rodgers style. But Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, Lamar Jackson. So if all of those guys run like they do, and we see Allen give up a couple touchdowns to Moss, maybe not be as accurate, I think it's within the range of possibly to 7 or 8 QB 5 to 7 kind of range for him. So if I have to bet, because I think there's more, I'd say it's probably a 65-35 shot he finishes as QB 5. So I'm going to say no and take the 65, but not be the least bit surprised if he's QB 4 or 5.
I think he certainly finishes as a top 5 QB. In his 3 years as quarterback, he's had 8 rushing touchdowns, 9 rushing touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns, even if he comes to 7 or 6. And I do think Moss will be a little bit better. I think with the passing weapons that they have and the offense that they're running, I think he's going to stay up there. I tend to be with Matt. I don't think he finishes as QB1 overall again, but I think he's going to be in the top 5.
Yeah, I would say outside of injury, there's almost no way he finishes top 5 for me. I just don't. I mean, the only two, I shouldn't say two, there's actually 3 guys I could see easily finishing over him, and that's Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, and Dak Prescott. I don't want to forget about Dak. He was the one that I was kind of overlooking there, but
so no way he doesn't finish top 5 for you.
Yeah,
because you said no way he finishes top 5.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, no way he doesn't finish top 5. Yeah, I think those 3 have the best shots to finish ahead of him. Another guy that I think is right there close with him is Lamar Jackson, who I've been talking about. I'm back in on now this year. I was off of him last year. Back in now. We're back in on Lamar Jackson this year because the hate's going a little bit too far on him. I think he's got a shot to finish up there in top 5. Justin Herbert. The other player is Deshaun Watson, but I don't think Watson plays this year. So I think that almost outside of injury locks Josh Allen into being a top 5 quarterback for the 2021 season. The backfield is a complete mess. Devin Singletary finishes RB 31 last year, 156 carries.
Is it though? Is it?
Is. No,
I mean,
it's complete.
I think McDermott's a smart guy. Whalen is a smart guy. Is that Whaley? Is that who their GM is, if I remember, Doug Whaley?
Yes, I believe
Whalen,
so.
I think.
Is it Whalen?
I think it's Whalen.
Related to Nick?
No. So, the moves they made at the running back position make me feel like they think their running back position.
Their GM is Brandon Bean.
Brandon Bean.
We were way off.
We all suck.
So I don't know that it's as big a mess as we think it is. I just think that it's a mess because we know nobody's going to put up a top 15, top 12 fantasy season. And so that's what makes it a mess for us.
Yep, still a mess. So Devin Singletary finished with 38. Wait, where was that? 156 carries, 687 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 38 receptions, 269 yards. Zach Moss finishes his RB 46, 112 carries, 481 yards, 4 touchdowns, 14 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. And they added Matt Breida as well. Matt, who leads this backfield, and can any of them finish as an RB2?
So Moss only played 13 games. He missed 3 last year, and seemed a little banged up in some other ones. So I think that held him back. I think Moss ends up being, sadly, the leader in the backfield. Singletary played more games, was the only one in all 16 starts, and actually finished worse than he did as in his rookie year, which was kind of a bummer. I think Moss ends up being the slight leader, and I don't think either of them finishes as an RB2.
Yeah, I think that, Moss is going to probably put up 700 yards. And, I feel like he's got 8 touchdowns in him. I think I believe that Allen's touchdowns are going to drop from like 8 to 5. I just think he's going to run there. Yeah, he's 6'5" and 240 pounds, but if you can avoid getting your quarterback hit unnecessarily, I think it's a prudent move to do so. And if you've got a 225-pound running back that can get the ball in the end zone when you get down close, maybe you use him a little more. Singletary is probably going to give up some carries because I do think Moss is going to be the more effective runner of the ball. So if Moss goes up from 112 carries in 13 games to maybe 195 carries, Singletary drops. I don't think he's going to drop a lot, but maybe he drops down to 140, 135. But his targets go up from 50 to 60 or 70. And the reason I say that is I feel that because the only significant move they made was adding Matt Breida, that they believe they've got a good running game. I don't know that I believe it, but Buffalo believes it, and they've been on the rise. So let's believe what they're telling us with their actions. I don't think any of them are going to break 1,000 yards. But it could be it could be a surprising season. That being said, if one of them is an RB2, it's most likely RB24, and it's probably Moss.
No, I'm all out on all three of them. Moss is the one, as Dennis was just mentioning, I could see finishing right at the back end of an RB2 based solely on him getting those touchdowns. But as much as I love Devin Singletary coming out and thought he could be the guy for Buffalo, he just hasn't shown it. Some of that I do think is due to injury. Some of that he's just not getting the carries because, man, maybe it's because he's not as good as I thought he was going to be. Maybe I have to finally admit that. But Zach Moss and Matt Breida, they're likely going to be stealing carries away from him. So, no, I think this is going to be a heavy pass touchdown thing. And I still think that Josh Allen is the best goal line back that they have. He's a very good runner. He's got very good instincts when they get down into that red zone area. I would not be surprised. Maybe his touchdowns do come down a little bit like Dennis was mentioning. And even if those go to Zach Moss, I don't see that jumping him up enough to be that RB2. So I'm not sold on any of these guys finishing as an RB2 in 2021. The wide receivers had a really good years, in Buffalo last year with Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, and even John Brown had his moments. Diggs finished as wide receiver 3, 127 receptions, 1,535 yards, and 8 touchdowns. A guy who, if I remember correctly, when we did our wide receiver ranking show last year, I completely left off the list. And then both Matt and Dennis had him. I think we all, once I added him on there,
it's all like wide receiver 27 or something.
Yeah, we had him as a low wide receiver too.
Stephon Diggs, let us take this moment to say we underappreciated your greatness.
Well, it's funny, right? Because we talked about that, and then I remember talking about on the show that I still thought like that was a great landing spot for him. I was like, I think he could do great things for Josh Allen's game, and yet I was still like, but no, he's like wide receiver. Yeah, it was bad. We severely underranked him last year.
But who saw Buffalo throwing for 5,000 yards? I mean, they had been a running defense beat you 10-7 kind of team before last year.
It was one of those ones that was just like, it was a little bit embarrassing. Like that was a little bit, it was like, wow, that was really bad. But he was great in 2020. Dennis, can he have an encore season in 2021?
I think so. He's clearly the top dog there. He is explosive. We know that from Minnesota. The question will be, is Allen going to be able to maintain that 69% completion percentage? How much of that is chalked up to Cole Beasley in the short area and Stephon Diggs basically being able to catch everything? I don't know. Maybe I feel like there will be some drop off for Allen. He had 144 targets last year. Diggs did. So I still think
he had 166
targets. Yeah, so he's gonna be up there plus 150 for the targets. I think that Beasley and Davis kind of even out a little bit in their target distribution. So if he's getting 160 targets and he's healthy for all 17 games, you're looking at a 1,600 yard season with 8 touchdowns for Diggs. So yeah, he's I don't know if I'd call it an encore based on his history in Minnesota and what he did here. I think that's just who Stephon Diggs is as a wide receiver. He's good.
Yeah, I think he finishes top 10 again, has top 5 potential. I'm with Dennis. Probably sees targets come back a little bit, but I think he's between 100 and 110 receptions, between 13 and 1,500 yards, maybe, between 7 and 10 touchdowns, right about where he was, which is going to lead him to have a pretty solid finish.
Yeah, I see no way he drops out of the top 10. I would think he has a better shot of finishing top 5. I was trying to find my wide receiver rankings, but I can't. There we go. Okay. I was looking on the wrong sheet. So just looking at the ones I have right now, Adams and Hopkins are really the only two I feel really comfortable.
And if you go from
putting ahead of
Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, we love you, Devontae Adams, but you're still
I'm really not that worried about Devontae Adams. Maybe I'm I think I'm not remembering this correctly, but I could have swore even when they had Brett Hundley out there, Devontae Adams still was doing pretty good. I'd take Jordan Love over Brett Hundley.
So here's the deal with that. If you're worried about Devontae Adams losing Aaron Rodgers, you're admitting that you think Allen Robinson is better than Devontae Adams.
No,
because Allen Robinson
there's a difference between being the clear
show.
wide receiver one and being a top 10 guy.
Yeah,
Allen Robinson with a real quarterback could be the wide receiver one.
Hey, well, with a real
guy.
quarterback, he has a real quarterback in Justin Fields.
Well, in the past, I mean,
yes, yeah, okay,
where he's been in the past. It's the difference between Aaron Rodgers and Blake Bortles. Can Devontae Adams still be a top 10 receiver? I didn't say I drop him out. I just said he probably comes off of being your clear-cut number one.
Yeah, I think I'll go like half between you guys on that one. I think there is a difference when you lose Aaron Rodgers to go to Jordan Love. Now, it may not be. I think it may not be Devontae Adams drops out of the top 10. Maybe he's not wide receiver one anymore, but I still think he's top 5 even with Jordan Love. But that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about Stephon Diggs, and I agree. I just don't see him falling out of the top 5. I mean, maybe if Michael Thomas bounces back, but Hopkins and Adams are really the only two. Justin Jefferson had that phenomenal year last year, but does he jump up by Tyreek Hill? I always forget about Tyreek Hill for some reason.
I have Diggs as my wide receiver 2 for Dynasty.
Okay, I've got him as 6 right now. So I'm really DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. I actually don't have DeAndre Hopkins ahead of him, but I probably should. So those are the guys that I'm with you guys. I don't know if he finishes number 3. I would keep him in my top 5 though. Cole Beasley had a really good year last year. And if you listened to when Bob Lung was on the show with us last year talking about the consistency guide, you may have bought into him like we did because Bob told you that Cole Beasley was likely going to have a very good year. He's been very consistent over his past couple years in the NFL. He finishes wide receiver 27, 82 receptions, 967 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Gabriel Davis, the guy a lot of people were really high on as a rookie last year, wide receiver 56, 35 receptions, 599 yards, 7 touchdowns. And then again, as we mentioned, they added Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver 41 from the Saints, 61 receptions, 726 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Dennis, how do you see it shaking out between these 3, Beasley, Davis, and Sanders? Who do you think ends up having the better season?
I'm going with Davis. I like his ability. I like his size. I like his speed. I think Beasley will be fine. He's what he is. He's got a ADOT of 7.8 last year. He's 31-year-old possession receiver. He's a heart guy, a glue guy. Everybody tends to overlook him. Is he going to get 107 targets again this season? Maybe. I mean, I think once you get that target volume, there's always a chance you could again. But I believe he's going to give up some of that target share to Gabriel Davis. Davis just showed last year that that he was ready for prime time. The game wasn't too big for him as a rookie. He came in, he played well. I mean, Davis started 11 games last year. I think that sometimes goes under the radar. So Beasley, he's going to come in and do what he does. Is he going to get close to it? I feel like you're looking at 85 targets, 60, 65, maybe 70 receptions. If he gets 70, then it's maybe 90 targets. But I expect about a 10 to 15% drop off in targets for Beasley, about 65 to 70 receptions, and probably 850 yards. So he's definitely going to have a flex-worthy season.
Yeah, I think Beasley comes back a little bit, but still ends up being the number 2 receiver for the Bills. Davis comes up a little bit. I think they're both probably in the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 range. And then Emmanuel Sanders. Last year, John Brown was wide receiver 84. He saw 52 targets, got 33 for 458 and 3. I think Sanders maybe sees around 60 targets, gets 30, 35, 500. I think he's kind of a depth and role player. He'll probably have one or two big games. I just did a best ball draft, and I took him because I figure there's going to be one game where Emmanuel Sanders catches like 3 for 150 and 2 touchdowns, and that'll be the great scoring. But barring injury, he's probably kind of just a role player and a depth player in that scheme. I just think Beasley fits what they're doing and does something different than some of the other receivers. Why he stays, I see him coming back a little bit off of his finish last year, but I think he still ends up as the second best receiver in Buffalo.
Yeah, I think it's Beasley too. If Davis ends up stepping into that John Brown role, we saw Brown had those big games, but it wasn't as consistent as I think both Diggs and Beasley will be. I think Beasley is going to be this thing. I expect Davis to take a little bit of a step up. I kind of don't think Emmanuel Sanders is going to do much of anything. I kind of agree with you there, Matt. I think he's going to have one, maybe two really big games, but I think it's really going to come down to Diggs, Davis, and Beasley. And I'd still lean a little bit on Beasley there. Yeah, no, I'm going to go Beasley second. So nobody, Felix, I think, would have thought Josh Allen would be considered a top 2 or 3.
Especially Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't. Wentz was considered to be a top QB as well. I don't think that'll happen to Allen. Wentz, I think, is a little bit due to injuries and just bad play calling. I don't think that's going to happen. I like Dayball over there in Buffalo. And then Brandon thinks the Bills will take the division again this year, and I am with you, Brandon. As much as I like the Dolphins, who we'll talk about here in just a minute, I don't think that they're going to unseat the Bills for the leader in the division. Dawson Knox, a favorite of this show. At least I know Matt and myself we're hoping for quite a long time that Dawson Knox was going to be a thing. Tied in 37 last year, 24 receptions for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. Matt, do you think Dawson Knox is going to be worth starting this year in your fantasy lineups?
No, Dennis is right. Them bringing in Josh Hollister was a real kick in the teeth if you were hoping for those Dawson Knox futures to come up. Well, they have 4 good receivers. They now have 2 tight ends. I think tight end 3 is about as best as you can hope for Knox.
I am 100% in on Dawson Knox being nowhere.
All right. You got
He's going to be the blocking half of that tight end duo.
I was a little excited. I thought you were going to buy into him. Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. As much as I'd love for him to take a step forward, bringing in Emmanuel Sanders there does not help, and then Hollister as well. I think that's really kind of relegating Knox to just being – he's going to have one game, I think, where you're going to be like, yes, there it is. Dawson Knox is coming alive, and it's just not going to happen. Paul's got the Jets taking the East. That's a little bit of a bold call. The Zach Wilson believer, I guess. I believe Paul subscribes to Felix Sharp's mind of thinking there, so maybe he's all in on the Zach Wilson hype train. Not quite all in on that. I think Jets are going to be last. We'll talk about them on Thursday, so yeah. Not in, though, on the Jets. All right, so let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. They had a really good season last year. Dennis was in on them last year. He actually had, I don't know if you might have even had the exact guess on them being 10-6. I know you had them almost making the playoffs last year. So while me and Matt, I believe, didn't have,
I think Dennis had them in the playoffs at 10-6, which is irony. They end up first out.
If they would have stuck with Ryan Fitzpatrick, it probably would have been right because he was definitely leading them down that path. But they finished 10-6 in second place in the AFC East. Their key additions, they added Will Fuller at wide receiver, Jason McCourty at cornerback, the running back Malcolm Brown. They brought in Jacoby Brissett to back up Tua and come in for certain games, I'm sure, this year. Again, just like they were pulling Ryan Fitzpatrick. They lost Ryan Fitzpatrick, who obviously goes to Washington to be their starter. They cut Kyle Van Noy, linebacker, goes back to New England. Defensive end, David Gacho. David Gacho, who goes to New England as well. Davenport, left tackle, who goes to the Colts. Their draft picks in the first round, they took Jalen Waddle, was someone that we talked about being a good fit there for them with Tua. And they also took Jalen Phillips, the defensive end, in the first round. In the second round, Javen Holland, the safety, Liam Eichberg, the offensive tackle, as well in the second round, and then Hunter Long, the tight end, in the third round, who I was really intrigued with that pick because I do like Hunter Long quite a little bit. So for the Dolphins, Dennis, what do you see from Tua Tagovailoa this year in year 2? Is this his team? Can he be the guy, or are we going to see them flip-flopping back and forth between him and Jacoby Brissett?
I don't think so. I think that this is Tua's team. He has established himself as, I don't know, he's becoming such a glue guy. He does all the right things. He says all the right things. He was coming back from a devastating injury, and they went through an off season that was very irregular. And so when you have somebody like Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here, hot take. Jacoby Brissett is no Ryan Fitzpatrick. Brissett is a solid guy. I think he has a little bit of, some of his tools are kind of similar to Tua. There was some difference in the game, I think, between Tua and Fitzpatrick. One's a mad bomber, one is a little more of a technician. Tua has plenty of arm strength. He's got fair mobility. He's not a statue in the pocket. Brissett is more mobile. I think Brissett has okay arm strength, but he doesn't necessarily pull the trigger if it's not wide open. Whereas Tua, I think, believes enough in his accuracy that he's willing to take those shots. I'm honestly looking back, it's a little confusing, the switching back and forth, but it doesn't seem to have had a negative effect on Tua's psyche. You have to be extremely mentally strong, and those types of things would really rattle, I think, just about any other rookie quarterback, to be in and out, being pulled in close games. But it didn't seem to rattle Tua. And everything you've seen from him, he is probably one of the mentally strongest quarterbacks I've seen come into the league in some time. Is that going to translate to wins? We're going to find out this year. Adding Jalen Waddle, there's some familiarity there, but it's still, you've got Parker, you've got added Will Fuller. They've got some weapons to be really explosive. It's going to be I think a fun offense to watch this year.
Well, first, I need to towel off from that hot take that Jacoby Brissett's not as good as Ryan Fitzpatrick. I do agree with you on that. It's interesting, I think, for the reasons that you laid out, because Fitzpatrick was there and because Tua was coming off that big injury. A lot of us didn't think he was really going to play last year. It seemed surprising when they put him in. I know Ryan Fitzpatrick was a little bit hurt, a little bit surprised when that happened. And despite the kind of switching back and forth, they got him good experience. They were competitive. They were on the cusp of being in the playoffs. Tua is the only of the rookie quarterbacks to finish with a winning record as a starter. He went 6-3. They let Fitzpatrick move on. I think it is his team. Brissett, to me, was a good signing to be a backup. We saw the failed starting experiment with a pretty good squad in Indianapolis. We saw the Colts kind of go another way there. I think Jacoby Brissett is a good veteran, a decent spot starter, not the kind of guy that they're going to bring in a hot hand approach and rotate. I think it is Tua's team, and I'm excited to see him take a little bit of a step up and be the guy for them this year. He was, I know, Matt, you felt differently, but Dennis and I had him as our highest quarterback in that draft class last year, and he maybe is a little bit behind the other two from what we saw last year, but I think he makes up some ground this year.
Justin Herbert, baby, number one, QB1 in my heart all day long. Yeah, I hope that they stick with Tua. In all honesty, I've said from the beginning I did not think he was a bad quarterback. I just liked Herbert a little bit more. Obviously, Joe Burrow was phenomenal as well. I just think they've got to give him a shot. There's no way you can keep pulling him and say that you're evaluated him and like you know what he's going to be. There's just no way. You've got to give him time. He made some very impressive throws last year. And the one thing I'll say too is we have to remember there was a lot of talk at the beginning of the year. He was going to redshirt the entire year because of that gruesome hip injury he suffered his final year in college. And he ended up coming out and playing. We don't even know if he was 100%. I know I saw some stuff on Twitter here recently that he finally does feel 100%, was throwing the ball a lot better. He was making some pretty impressive throws again against air, so take that for what it's worth. But I do think they should give him the year. I will agree with Dennis's hot take that Jacoby Brissett is not Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that I really do think they should give Tua the whole year. And I do think it's his team, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do with this team, because they were on the cusp of making the playoffs, even with bringing Tua in on the second half. So, Matt, what do you think they need to do to kind of get over that hump and make the playoffs again for the first time since they did with Ryan Tannehill back in, I don't know what year that was, but it was quite a bit ago. It was at least 5-6 years ago.
10 or 11, probably.
Maybe it was even further back than 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. I think they need probably some good luck. It's going to be a tight pack trying to get in there. I feel like Buffalo is probably the better team in the AFC East. You have 2 or 3 teams in the North, 2 or 3 teams in the West that are going to be competing.
2016. See, it was only a couple of years ago. I was right. It was like 5 or 6 years ago.
5. Yeah, so you did good. New England obviously is trying to get a little bit better in their own division that they're going to be competing with. Some people will think the Jets will be better. We shall see.
Paul is some people.
Yeah. The only ones I probably am ruling out are the Jaguars, the Watsonless Texans, and that might be it. Those are probably the only teams you can completely rule out at this point in time in the AFC. So they're going to need some good luck. They're going to need some good play. They're going to need things to break their way. Obviously 10-6 last year and don't get in. So winning double-digit games in the AFC is no guarantee that you make it in. Last year, I don't think it's going to be a guarantee this year. They probably need to get to 11 or 12 wins to secure themselves a spot.
Yeah, it's competitive there. I like the Bills. They're probably the class of the division just based on Josh Allen's ability to pick the offense up and carry it to victory. I think he's the one quarterback in that division right now that can do that can put a team on his back. I was lower on Wilson than a lot of people. I'm not sold on him 100%. I think he might be okay, but I don't think he's a savior kind of QB. There's a lot of stuff going on in New England at the quarterback position, and so that puts Miami as the team, I think, in the chase with Buffalo. So can they make the playoffs? Adding another game, they're probably going to need to have 12 wins to make the playoffs. So, I haven't went through the schedule. I went through it one time, but I'd have to go find that. It much like Matt having 3 1-16 teams, it was a quick and dirty kind of schedule projection. So I don't remember what I had. I think I had the Dolphins in, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Much like Buffalo, Miami didn't really add a lot to their rushing game, so they clearly felt pretty good with the guys they have in the backfield. So we'll see how it goes. Adding Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle to your passing core, though, that kind of tells me that there's going to be some. I'm Tua in Dynasty sugar-free. I want to see how that offense opens up when with those new weapons there.
Yeah, I think that they have a shot. I did pick them. I pulled up my schedule thing again. Just take this for what it's worth. I had 4 teams finishing 1-16, so it was a very quick run through. That was just kind of me guessing. It doesn't look great when you look at it, but I did have them making it in at 10 wins as the last seed into the playoffs, just behind the Broncos at 10-7 as well. So Tua, I think, is the biggest thing on if they'll be able to get over the hump. I like this defense. I think Brian Flores and I don't know the general manager. I'm not going to guess because we were way wrong on
Chris Greer.
Chris Greer. There we go. So we were way wrong.
Did you
on
look it up?
There in Miami. So I will. I'll answer your question here in just a minute, Sugar Free. But I think Tua is going to be the main reason if they can get into the playoffs. That defense is good. I actually like Gaskin and Ahmed, who we'll get to here in a minute, and obviously adding Jalen Waddle to an already, I think, decent wide receiver core. You add a guy like Waddle into that as well, who gives them an even more explosive threat. I think this team is primed to win, especially with the Patriots possibly still being down for one more year. And I agree with you guys. The Jets, I like what the Jets are doing. I do actually like what they did with their draft and free agency. I think Zach Wilson can be a good quarterback, but I don't expect them to take that jump this year into being contenders into the East. So I think the Dolphins are right there on the cusp. It will all come down to Tua on whether or not he will be the reason they make the playoffs or not. In Dynasty, would you rather take Wilson or Tua? Ooh, that's a tough one for me because
I'm still taking Wilson.
Graded fairly closely. I'm assuming this is Zach Wilson, not Russell Wilson. That's why
is it Russell Wilson or Zach?
If it's Russell Wilson, I'm taking Russell Wilson. That's not close for me.
I thought it was Russell Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
I'm assuming Zach as well.
Yeah,
so
but Zach Wilson, I'm taking Tua. Yeah. If it's
close,
Russell Wilson, I'm taking Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's close for me, but I'm taking.
Zach. It's Zach Wilson.
Zach, yeah. I figured it was Zach. I figured it was Zach. Man, see, you know what? I'm going to go Zach. I'm going completely on the opposite.
I forgot Zach Wilson existed. When I saw Wilson, I'm like, oh, Russell.
Some of that, I think, may just be because all these people making fun of him for him being this kind of like shy, kind of sheltered kid with all the videos and everything people keep posting and making fun of him and his mom. Kind of all in on Zach Wilson now. I really hope he succeeds. And I mean,
not a lick of that weighs into my consideration. I don't care if he, is in bed by 8 o'clock every night. That's not a game night.
I like Tua as a better prospect. Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's not I wouldn't go that far, but I think I had them graded very closely. Again, I was lower on Tua than a lot of other people. He's not a guy that I think is going to be
We got it. You hate them both. We got it.
And I hate both of them. No, I'm coming around on Zach Wilson. No, I agree. It doesn't factor into my analysis. I'm saying I want Zach Wilson to prove people wrong now because of that. I'm not saying
you just want to avoid that Dolphin tattoo.
I just Justin Herbert, but hey, look, Justin Herbert's already made me look amazing. I'm not even worried about getting that Dolphin tattoo. Jeremy Barker, I've already got the lightning bolt lined up, my friend. It's coming. Justin Herbert's gonna win the MVP.
Like go from his belly button down. Is that where the
was lower back?
No, it's tramp stamping, baby. We're tramp stamping up in here. So that's the bet. And all I need is Justin Herbert to win the MVP this year, which, you know what? He's in the odds. So it's going to happen, baby. Of course, watch what's going to happen is Justin Herbert's going to win MVP and Tua is going to end up winning the Super Bowl this year. And it's going to be, all right, so how are we both going to get these tattoos made? But anyways, on to the fantasy finishes and fantasy projections. As both of you were just talking about how much you guys like Tua, do you guys believe with him getting likely the full start this year, being the guy, does he finish top 15? Last year, he finished his QB 32 with 1,814 yards, passing 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 109 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So, Dennis, top 15 finish for Tua this year?
Well, man, he's got the explosive wide receivers. So, he's got a pretty good possession guy in Parker. And so let's see, 290 attempts in 17 games. He's probably looking at 550. I can see, 4,300 yards, 24 touchdowns. Forget it. He actually rushed. What was his rushing yardage last season?
It's on there.
Well, 109 yards. He had 36 attempts, even on that not fully recovered hip. So, top 15. Boy, that's a good number, man. That's a good number. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to give him 15 on the nose.
I'm going to say no. Slight miss. I think he's more likely 16 to 18.
I'm saying no as well. I have him right around 2021. I don't really see jump. Then again, I believe Fields is going to start more than probably some people do, so maybe he jumps a little bit higher than that. I don't really remember who else I had above him. Daniel Jones may be a bad take there, but I'm all in on Daniel Jones and Mac Jones. So I guess realistically, he could jump 3 spots. That's still not going to put him top 15 for me. That at best puts him around 18. So I'm going to say no on Tua as well, because I do think that they like to rely on their running game. Myles Gaskin and Salvon Ahmed were both very good last year. They did not add anybody in the draft like many thought they would. In fact, it looked like they were going to get Javonte Williams, but then Denver jumped them to take Javonte. So Gaskin does look like a big winner this offseason. Can him or Ahmed finish as an RB2, especially Gaskin if he ends up playing all year? He finishes RB28 in just 10 games, 142 carries, 584 yards, 3 touchdowns, 41 receptions, 388 yards, 2 touchdowns. Salvon Ahmed, RB65, 75 carries on 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, 11 receptions for 61 yards. So, Matt, how do you see this backfield shaking out?
I think Gaskin's the lead guy, and I do think he finishes as a top 24 back. And then, I liked the combination of him with Ahmed, but they also brought in Malcolm Brown, who we've seen as a contributor with that Rams backfield, not a contributor in a way that fantasy players were excited about, but a contributor. And then they have a lot of people's draft lottery ticket, Jared Dokes, to kind of round out that group. I think some combination of those 3 will help have an improved running game, but I think Gaskin's the lead guy, and it's his receiving work that, for me, puts him, especially in PPR, up into RB2 territory.
Yeah, I think Gaskin's going to be the guy in Miami, while Ahmed – sorry, reading the comment. Anyways, Gaskin in college rushed for or caught, I think, close to 100 passes. He was a 4-year starter. Interestingly enough, his successor was Ahmed. But anyways, Gaskin came into the NFL with a significant amount of tread on the tires. He'd had a lot of carries, caught a lot of passes in college. And I think it took him a year or so to be able to get fully healthy again. And so while I don't think he's going to have a real long tenure as the guy, I think for the next couple of years, Gaskin is going to be able to carry the load. You're looking at probably 200 carries, 210 carries, 75 targets with 50 to 60 catches for the next couple of years before at, what is he, 5'9", 209, 5'10", 209, something like that. He's got okay size, but not great size. The challenge for Gaskin is going to be that I think Malcolm Brown and Jared Dokes are going to start to vulture him when they get inside the 5 and the 10. So making up for losing those touchdowns in the passing game is going to be able to put Gaskin up there in that top 24 range. I like Gaskin. I liked him coming out of college and was actually kind of bummed that he didn't get a shot sooner. But when you look at the amount of usage he had in college and what his size is, it kind of makes sense for him to have maybe taken a little bit of time to get up to speed.
Yeah, I was all in on Gaskin last year. I talked a lot about with Matt during the season, a lot of people who got mad at a trade that I made in one of my dynasty leagues because they felt like he wasn't going to do anything, and he ended up having a really good season. I'm all in on him. I think Salvon Ahmed's going to be really good. Dokes I do see as a guy that everybody is kind of propping up to be the guy because he does bring a little bit of a different skill set to the Miami Dolphins backfield than than Gaskin and, my goodness, Ahmed do, but I'm not sure that he's going to be anywhere near a top-scoring guy. I do think Gaskin does finish as an RB2 because of what he can do in the receiving game and rushing yards. So, Forrest Law, I'm glad that you finished commenting on that because I didn't understand at all where you were going with the first comment. I do agree with you that they did have, obviously, as you mentioned, they were last in yards of separation. Will Fuller and Waddle are going to do that. I will also say that I think that is also what hinders Tua a little bit is that I do think he's a little bit, I don't want to say too careful with the ball, but he usually is not going to try and zip it into those tight windows like you see some of the better quarterbacks do, and you're not always going to have Fuller and Water create that separation. So that's where my hesitance on ranking Tua that high comes from. I would say that, yes, he is good at improvising. I would not put him in the same category as Russell Wilson, though. That I would disagree with. But you could be very right. I mean, Matt and Dennis have always been higher on Tua than I have been. I don't see it. I think he's a very good quarterback, but I don't think he is an elite quarterback. And I think you have to be an elite quarterback or in a very high-powered offense to finish as a top-end quarterback. And he is, in my opinion, neither of those. He's not in a high-scoring offense, nor is he an elite quarterback. So that is why I have him ranked as low as I do. And if I will tell you, I've been very wrong before. So, hell, if he finishes as a top 10 quarterback, you are more than welcome to jump in here at the end of the year and tell me I'm wrong, because it's going to happen a lot. I've been wrong quite a lot. So, anyways, wide receivers. Devontae Parker finishes wide receiver 40 last year, 63 receptions, 793 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Will Fuller, who comes over from Houston, who will be gone for at least one game. Is that correct? It's just the one game.
Yeah, he's suspended for week
so
one.
he'll be suspended for week 1 due to the PED stuff last year, but he finished as wide receiver 32 last year for Houston, 53 receptions, 879 yards, and 8 touchdowns. They did, as we were just talking about, add in Jalen Waddle, who I think is going to be the most explosive wide receiver on that team. Likely will get Preston Williams back, Dennis's guy, from injury as well. So I'm going to kick it off to you, Dennis. Which receiver leads the pack for the Dolphins this year?
Well, I think it's going to be a pretty balanced attack because you've got guys that do different things. I think Waddle is going to get some of the short area stuff as well as some deep stuff because he is explosive. I think the question for me is going to be, can Waddle step into the Will Fuller role when Fuller inevitably gets injured, since he's going to try to stay off the PEDs this year. If Waddle can step into that role and create the kind of separation that Fuller does, then you have, because I feel like Waddle's going to be the short area guy to start out with some deep stuff. Fuller and Parker on the outside, with Parker being the big possession guy. He's got some ability to get downfield, but he doesn't have. He's not nearly as dynamic as Waddle or Fuller. But if Fuller goes out, I think Waddle slides out to that position, and then Lynn Bowden hops into the slot there and becomes that short area guy. And he's shown that he can be effective in that role. They still got, I think, Jakeem Grant.
Yes, they still have a million people.
As much as I'm trying to stay in on Preston Williams, the injuries are pushing him down the target totem. And so he is, he's big. He's 6'3", 6'4", 218, 220 pounder with okay speed, but he's been injured each of the last 2 years. He's got to put it all together. He's got to become he's got to be a better catcher. He's had some inconsistent hands. So right now I feel like Preston Williams is like the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 guy. It's a pretty clear starting group of Parker, Fuller, and Waddle. And that's an explosive group. And I like Waddle to be productive in year 1. Who's going to lead them? Man, I feel like there's going to be a rookie wall for Waddle. Fuller's going to miss time. while he does have a rap for missing time for injuries when he's actually not quite as injury prone, I think, as we like to make it out to be. I think they're going to be led by Devontae Parker. I think Parker is going to be the consistent guy. He's going to be the mid-range target. He's going to be the big body guy that converts first downs, converts tough plays. When they need something explosive, it's Fuller or Waddle. When they're just consistently moving the chains and whatnot, it's going to be Parker.
So I think Parker is what he is. He is consistent. He's been he really has stepped up the last few years. He'll be fine. For me, I think Waddle ends up being their leading receiver. The real wild card is Fuller. We saw him have incredible chemistry with Deshaun Watson. When they were on the field together, it was pretty electric. Does that translate over? We've seen in the past to free agent wide receivers, it takes a little while to acclimate. I don't think Tua and Deshaun Watson are the same type of quarterback or the same type of thrower. And Fuller obviously is going to be suspended for week 1. We don't know. His struggle prior to last year was always staying healthy and on the field. And last year it's like, oh man, he's healthy. He's available. He's going great. Gets a PED suspension. So what is that going to be like? Fuller is going to be motivated because he's on a 1-year deal. If he wants to get a good solid deal next offseason, he's going to have to show out on the field. I just think it's going to be Waddle as their number 1 receiver guy. I was with you. I liked Preston Williams. We saw flashes as a rookie. We saw a couple of moments last year. He doesn't seem to be able to stay on the field. And now with the Dolphins investing heavily in getting 2 bigger receivers, 1 big free agent, 1 first-round pick, I think he slides down, and sadly his dynasty value has slid down with him.
I agree on the Preston Williams thing, but if he ends up going to another team, I'd like to see what he can do. Because again, in the game that he got hurt, he was having a huge game for the Dolphins. I think if he could just stay healthy, though I agree, I think he's kind of buried right now in the Dolphins depth chart. I'm actually leaning with Matt on this one. I think it's going to end up being Waddle because I think he ends up in the slot. And I think that's going to help out Tua, what he can do after the catch. And if he ends up getting lined up against some linebackers at times, just with them moving around on formations, he's going to eat in that offense. Parker, maybe it's just hard for me to believe in him, but he's only been consistent for like a year and a half, because last year, while he was good at times, he still struggled a little bit. And Will Fuller, Dennis, you mentioned it. He was healthy all last year, but a lot of people have been contributing that to the fact that he had taken the PED. So if he's not taking those anymore, does he stay healthy? So I think there's a realistic shot that Waddle has only suffered the 1 serious injury in college. We saw him come back in the national championship game and try and play some. Probably shouldn't have been on the field because you could tell he was still injured, but I expect him to be fully healthy coming into camp and everything. If he is their best shot to stay healthy their full season and what he can do in the screen game, running game, and if he's in the slot, I think Waddle is going to end up being their best wide receiver this year. At tight end, Mike Gesicki finished as tight end 7 with 53 receptions, 703 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Do we think that tight end Mike Gesicki can finish as a top 10 tight end again this year? They did bring in Adam Shaheen, and they have Hunter Long as well. We are not Dolphin fans, Forrest Law. We're just talking about the Buffalo Bills and the Dolphins today. I will go first and say that I do think that he will finish as a top 10 tight end this year. But I actually think Hunter Long is the better tight end, and I think the reason they brought him in is because they likely will not pick up Gesicki's option in a couple years and let him go to free agency. That being said, I do think that Gesicki has a chance to finish the top 10 tight end. As we referenced when we talked about some of the guys earlier in the episode with the Buffalo Bills, tight end 6 through 20, as Dennis loves to say, is very much jumbled together. And Gesicki, I think, has a lot of upside with his athleticism and his touchdown. So I think he will finish as a top 10 tight end. And Fantasy Nav here has the Bills taking the East. So unfortunately, guys, I'm going to cut it there because I now have to get the 100-yard rush ready. So you got your comment in right at the last second there, my friend. So I will start getting everybody added in here. I honestly don't know Gesicki's ADP Forest Law, but I will see if Matt or Dennis can find that really quick and answer that question. I will be back in just a minute as I'm going to get the 100-yard rush ready for the Scott Fish Bowl 11 draw here in just a second.
Yeah, for Gesicki, it's a situation where he's a great athlete playing tight end, and we're waiting for him to put it together. I agree with Matt.
ADP is tight end 13. I do like that ADP because I think he's better than – I think he would be a top 12 tight end for me.
Yeah, he's getting opportunity. I don't think we have to worry about Durham Smythe or Adam Sheehan cutting into his targets. And I think as much as third-round draft capital for Hunter Long, we need to remember that tight ends typically take some time to develop. That being said, maybe this is the year that Gesicki puts it all together and he develops. This is what, his third year, maybe his fourth.
I think it's his fourth year.
Right. And so like Matt, I don't expect them to pick up his fifth-year option. So he'll be on the market next year and they can make the decision whether or not they're going to re-sign him. Getting, he
was a second-round pick. This is his fourth year. So this would be his contract year.
Right. Maybe he does put in, if he can put up a 70 reception season, then I suppose I would see them going to making the effort to keep him. They've got a pretty deep wide receiver core, and so I don't know how many targets. I feel like Tua is always going to be kind of middle of the road when it comes to passing attempts. I don't see him being, a 630 attempt guy like some of these others. Again, I'm thinking about those in 16-game season parameters because that's still where my head is at. He's a second-round pick, so they don't need to worry about a fifth-year option for us. And the other tight ends are kind of jagged, so it's going to come down to Hunter. It's SpotTrack, SPOTRAC.com. And it's going to come down to Gesicki developing consistency. And if he's consistent this year, then they end up, I think, making an effort to re-sign him at a value, though I'm not sure, what that value is. He doesn't feel like a guy who's going to make the ascension into, Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson territory for me. He feels more like he's always going to be one of those guys, maybe not tight end 6 to tight end 20, but, tight end 8 to tight end 14. So if you narrow that range down a little bit.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page. So between Tua and Fitzpatrick last year, they threw it 559 times. Adding in an extra game, I think between 550 and 600 pass attempts seems likely. Gesicki had a good year. He's a solid value at the position. I tend to see him finishing between tight end 8 and 12. Could he be top 10? Yes. I also wouldn't be surprised if he was just outside. I think he's still in that tight end 1 range. But the difference here, the Dolphins have probably better receivers, and I think we expect better production out of the wide receivers because last year Parker was still fine. Preston Williams only played half a year, and beyond that, it was a little bit of a toss-up who was going to be out there at receiver. And I expect better production out of their running backs. We talked about Gaskin maybe staying on there. So that eats into targets a little bit. I think Gesicki's still going to be solid. I'm not worried about Hunter Long clipping him this year. Adam Shaheen was there last year. That seemed to take some of his goal line shots away, which could just diminish his scoring. But I think it's more they have better wide receiving core this year. But he still, to me, is going to be in the tight end 1 territory. I don't think he's a lock for top 10.
All right, so that will do it for us today on that. We will be back on Thursday to talk about the Jets and Patriots, so that should be a super fun episode. So let's go ahead and get
Your favorite team, the Patriots?
Yeah, I do like Mac Jones. Let's see here. 100-yard rush. There we go. So I assume everybody can see that. I left it on this page because I wanted you guys to make sure that you see I don't do anything like weird or try and give anybody any kind of special advantages. So that's all the names on there that commented YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
I think Paul and Paul Cochran might be the same guy.
No, there's Paul on YouTube, and then Paul Cochran did comment multiple times, but it's two different people. There's a Paul on YouTube, and then Paul Cochran commented on Facebook and on Twitter.
Right. Well, I just know Paul Cochran is a 49ers fan.
Oh, is that a 49ers thing on? Well, Well, okay, so if regular Paul wins, then we'll rerun it because my bad. I did not notice that part. I thought there was the Superman logo, not the 49ers. So, but there was only that, so we'll just leave it at that. If this Paul wins, we'll just go with Grant.
If you're still listening, Paul Cochran, if you could clarify that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll leave it as Paul, but if that is the same Paul, then yeah, we'll just rerun it if they end up winning it. But so then we'll go this. I'm going to randomize it 10 times here so everybody can see that. So shuffle 10 times. We'll go forward with the next thing. So you guys to see, not giving anybody any kind of luck adjustments or anything like that. Yeah, good. We will go with faster so that it gets run ready. And then, so did he clarify? I don't know if he's still watching.
I haven't seen a comment yet.
All right. So if he ends up winning it, it's probably the same one. So we'll just rerun it. So, all right. Good luck to everybody here as this kicks off. We'll see who ends up getting a spot in the Scott Fish Bowl 11. He was more than gracious to give us one. I swear if Felix wins it, I'm going to be pissed. I'm not even going to lie. He's going to end up. Nope. Sugar-free mocha. All right, which I believe is, I just saw that you ended up following me on Twitter, so I appreciate that. Jamie Honduras. So congratulations to Sugar-Free Mocha. I will have Dennis reach out to you on Twitter as he was the one who set that up with Scott Fishbowl so he can get your information and get that over to Scott Fish. Congratulations on getting into Scott Fish Bowl 11. Should be a very fun one. It was a lot of fun last year. I think he's keeping the same scoring. Is that correct? Does anybody know? I want to say
I believe so, yes.
And adding kickers though.
Yeah, so that it's gonna be fun. It's always a lot of fun. You'll get to be in there with a lot of industry people, a lot of other fans. It's a great time. I was lucky enough to be in it last year, and it was a very fun league, very fun thing to be a part of. So congratulations to you, and again, thank you very much to Scott Fish, Ryan McDowell for setting this up, and for Scott Fish for giving us a spot to give away. Absolutely, man. Thank you for tuning in and commenting. Like I said, Dennis will reach out to Dennis actually on Twitter. Probably easier that way at @culture_coach. Sugar-Free Mocha to he'll get everything squared away with you and get all that information over to Scott Fish. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in. I feel weird saying this. I don't mean it in a negative way, but please, if you are off today, enjoy your day off, even though obviously as a Memorial Day, it is something to look back on. Thank all of the soldiers and their families from everything that they have been through. And thank you for your service to everybody in my family that has served, specifically my dad, who I know was watching earlier. Thank you very much for your service to our country. And Matt and myself will be back again on Thursday to talk about the Jets and the Patriots. Until then, everybody have a great day, and we'll see you guys again soon.